Hi again, everybody. Peggy McGuire, and I'm back with part two of our initial video information, our sort of general overview of technical writing. And in this second part, I'd like to go back and revisit some of the things that we talked about in the first part, to focusing on writing purpose in technical communication. And whenever I talk about purposes, why we're writing, I'll also always be talking about to whom we're writing, because they are inextricably linked, my purpose and my audience, and we will always consider them together. So we'll go back and review and maybe say a few more things about specific ways that purpose and audience are critical to successful technical communication. We'll also do some brief talking about ethical and legal considerations that are particularly relevant when your technical communication is meant to try to persuade someone to do something. So those are the topics we will cover in this section. So, just as a reminder, we started off last time with this definition. What is technical writing? Remember, as with all or much of the kind of writing that we do at work and in school, we are exchanging information in written form. But for technical writing specifically, what we're doing is trying to help people interact with technology in some way. And by the way, you'll see that the term technology is pretty broadly defined here, but in some way, our purpose has to do with helping people interact effectively with technology and to help those people solve complex problems, whether it's how to accomplish some specific task, or to answer a specific question, or to make an important decision of some kind. That those are the kinds of writing that we talk about when we talk about technical writing. Therefore, in the big picture, technical writers are communicators and they are problem solvers who are thinking about and trying to answer the question, how do I give my readers what they need? So this should sound familiar from last time. That's the question that is in my mind. And here are some other questions as a technical writer that I am always thinking about. Who am I writing to? There's my audience. What do I want to accomplish by my writing? There's my purpose. And how will my audience use what I write? This is a term that we'll use shortly, called intended use, a very important aspect of planning technical writing. That the writer must always be thinking about how we expect or hope that our readers will use what it is that we're writing. So we'll come back to that in a minute. Now let's think about audience a little more. I've been using the term a lot. Who are our readers? And we can think about audience in terms of primary and secondary. So let's think about primary audience. Who are the readers most likely to need to understand what I am writing? First of all, whoever I expect to read the document that I'm producing in order to learn something or to do something. Again, this is the technical piece. That the point here is to help someone learn something, do something, accomplish something. So, whoever I expect to read my document so that they can learn something or do something is my primary audience. So I want to think about who that is early in my planning of any kind of technical document. How else to think about this primary audience? The people to whom I'm going to take my message, and I'm going to tailor it because I've been thinking about their interests, their needs, the ways of understanding that they can best respond to. So, my audience is those people that I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about how to design, how to focus, how to tailor the work that I'm doing to help someone else understand it and do something with it. That's my audience. And very often, people with either technical or semi technical or non technical background in the subject. So actually, it's always one of those. The people you are writing to are going to fall into one of those three groups. So, what does that mean? When they have technical background, that means they already know a great deal about the technical issues involved in whatever it is you're writing about, right? Semi technical means that they will know something or have some kind of understanding of the technical nature of your communication. It may not be fully informed, and sometimes it may not be accurate, but there is some understanding there. And in that case, if their understanding is not accurate, part of your job is going to be to inform them of the accurate way of thinking about something. So your audience could be there, having some knowledge but not enough, or some knowledge but needing more. And then there are people who have no technical knowledge whatsoever or no technical background in the topic that you're addressing in your technical communication. Now, why is it important to think about where your audience lies? Think about this. You're going to write differently depending on whether or not the people you're writing to already know something about the subject, already know a lot about the subject, or know nothing about the subject. So just think about that in general terms. The answer to that question is going to really affect how you approach your subject. You're going to have to write in very different ways depending on which of those groups your audience falls into. So it's an extremely important question to keep in mind from the very beginning of your planning for your technical communication. Now, those are the primary audiences. What about secondary audiences? Who are other possible readers of your writing in technical communication? Is there someone around who is advising decision makers in an organization? Someone who is advising the person who commissioned this technical writing from you? Is there someone whose ear who has the ear of the person who's going to be making decisions based on what you wrote? If so, that advisor will be an audience that you need to think about also. And on the other side, will someone be affected by your message who may not be a primary audience person? Someone who you're not writing to and yet is going to be impacted in some way by the information that you share, by the recommendations that you make. If there's someone out there who's going to be affected, even though they're not your primary audience, you need to think about those folks too. And they are part of that group that we would call the secondary audience for your writing. Okay, so this should look familiar too. Again, just to review, when we talked about primary purposes of written technical communication in last time, we talked about some combination of either informing readers, instructing readers, or persuading readers, or doing some of each. And remember that if you're informing readers, part of the job is to think about what kinds of questions those readers might have, which takes us back to are these technically savvy people? If so, their questions are going to be very different from people who have no technical background, right? So, a lot of thinking, as I said before, and I'll keep saying, a lot of thinking goes into how am I going to write technical communication. But in broad strokes, we are always doing some combination of informing, instructing, and persuading our audience members. But, again, there is a secondary purpose as well as secondary audience to think about. And the secondary purpose that you want to keep in mind is there something else I want to accomplish with this document that I'm writing beyond informing a particular audience, beyond persuading a particular audience? Is there something else that I want to accomplish by writing what I write? And again, I'm thinking about my reader. I'm thinking about my audience. What else might that my audience need beyond being informed about a particular technical issue, or being persuaded to take some steps within a technical context. Is there something else my reader wants or needs, and therefore something else I want to accomplish beyond my immediate goals? Lots to think about. Now, let's talk about intended use a minute, because it's such an important piece of technical writing. If technical writing is focused on getting people to do things, to accomplish tasks, to solve problems, then what we're talking about is use. We're talking about people directly using the information we provide to do something, to make a decision, to whatever. So, if we are talking about direct use of the information that we produce, then we have to always in our planning be thinking about how is my reader going to use this? What is the intended use of this document? So, do my readers want to learn something from me? Do they want to better understand some concepts that I can help them better understand? Do my readers want to use information to specifically make a specific decision? And I can help them do that by giving them good, solid information. Sometimes, in certain circumstances, my audience needs to act immediately on the information. If there is a crisis, if there is a, a time sensitive and pressing matter, that it may be that whoever reads what I write is going to act immediately on it. So, if that's the case, I need to know that as the writer, and I need to write accordingly. Or on the other hand, does my reader want nice, clear, no nonsense, step by step instructions about how to do something? I would put myself in that camp whenever it comes to things like the new smart TV or the new cell phone with all the bells and whistles. I want really clear steps to tell me how to get things going. So if that's what I want as your audience, then you need to take that into account as the writer and make sure that you produce what I want. So, but you and I, as technical writers, will only do that if we really put some thought beforehand into how is my reader going to use what I write. So that's what we mean by intended use, always having that clearly in mind. Now, as I said earlier, one of the purposes of technical writing is to persuade people to do something, or to think in a certain way, or to make a particular decision. If that is the case, we are, especially as technical writers, um, in a position where we need to really be careful about ethical and legal considerations. If we are in a power position where we are able to persuade people to do something, then we better be doing it for the right reasons. We better be doing the right things, and we better be doing the legal things. So when we talk about influence and persuasion in the field of technical writing, it's especially important since the assumption is that we as the writers have information that our audience may or may not have, then we're in a position of power where we really do need to look at using that power ethically and legally. So, first of all, I'm thinking about persuading, back to purpose. What is it that I want to do? Do I want to influence my reader's opinion? Do I want to get the reader's support for an opinion I have and that I want to be more widespread? Am I proposing a plan to solve my reader's problem? So I know that my reader has a problem needs to be solved. I'm gonna in this technical writing, I'm going to propose how to solve it. All right? That's a lot of power. Or am I trying to change my reader's behavior? Am I actually, within this technical communication, asking people to behave in different ways than they used to? Those are the kinds of things that we may be doing when we're doing persuasive writing. And that's true whether it's technical communication or other kinds of academic or business writing, is that those are the kinds of things we mean when we're talking about persuasive writing. But again, in the technical writing field, it's especially important because we hold a lot of power with the information that we hold. So if we're got that power, we need to use it wisely and fairly, ethically and legally. So how do I do that? I go back to think about my audience. I try to predict how they're going to react to what I say. If I'm trying to get someone to change their behavior, I better think ahead of time about how the people I'm writing to are likely to respond and likely to react. If it's depending on the controversial nature of the issue or the difficulty of the message that I'm sending, I people may want to resist the recommendations I'm making or the answers that I'm providing. So I need to prepare for resistance if I think that it's going to be there. Best way to prepare for resistance is to think about what our common ground is and how can I connect to the reader. As the technical writer, how can I create a relationship with the reader so that it'll be easier to take my message? Right? How do I appeal to their reason, their common sense? How do I appeal to their not just reason and common sense, but also feelings and the things that they care about? If possible, the ways, some ways to sort of soften the blow and make it easier to get our audiences on board with us are to, within the context of our technical communication, to allow for some give and take. If it's possible, to solicit feedback from your audience. That's always a good thing, too, because what you're doing is showing that you value their opinions and their thoughts and their feelings. And that always makes people feel better, even if they're resistant. If they feel like you're respecting them and you're asking them for what they think, they tend to take your message a little more easily, right? So that's one way that we can help the audience get on board with something that they might be resisting. Or another way to do it is to ask the audience for a specific response to whatever it is you're asking them. So if you are asking them to behave in a different way, you want to ask them to let them know if that's possible. Let you know if that's possible. Let you know what more it will take, but to respond in some specific way to what you are asking. And in any one document, don't ask too much. Don't, change is hard. And if your technical writing task is to ask people to change, that's hard for people to do. So you want to be in your planning, you want to be thinking about how to make your ask as easy to swallow as possible. And part of that is one step at a time. Don't ask people too much. All right? In your technical writing performance. And always understand the context in which your readers are operating. Learn the unspoken rules of the organization that they work in. Get to know the cultural norms of a group of people that you're addressing. The more you know people's background, where people live, what is important to them, the easier it is for you to find that common ground and find those ways to connect to the reader. And those are in technical writing, you're going to be most often working from in workplaces and organizations where there are things like legal issues, ethical issues, social and time constraints, organizational rules. So, get to know what they are. Get to know what, if any, common goals and values your readers have with you. Get to know what are the cultural norms. It's tough. This is a tough one of the toughest things that a writer needs to do. And again, this could be said for any kind of writing where you are trying to reach and persuade an audience. But certainly in a technical writing context where you have and are trying to share information that it's likely some people don't have, and you're really in an educational as well as a persuasive mode, that it's incumbent upon you to be careful about how you use that considerable power. And one way to do it is to really spend some time getting to know the context in which your audience operates. It will help you tremendously to persuade people if you need to persuade them, to help them feel like you know something about them. So definitely fully understand your reader's context. And when you make claims, when you make any kind of arguments, that you support them with evidence so that you will have credibility in the eyes of your reader. Um, so, so that brings us to the end of our sort of big general overview of technical writing. And so we are going to very quickly move into much more specific areas that we will be dealing with over the course of the semester. So I will look forward to going there with you. Take care.